everyone. It is the next episode of This Is Whole Life because I didn't write down which episode it was and I didn't feel like firing up my laptop to take a look and see what episode it was. Just printed out the notes that I had for today and that's it.
381-ish.
I think it might be 379 or 380. Either way, it's the next one in your feed. You'll find it. I'm confident of that. And the reason why I probably forgot was it has been at least 5-6 weeks since all of us. Since all four of us have been here.
That's
because
right. Yeah.
Melanie's been gone, and Jeff was gone for a little bit, and Ken was gone
last week,
and
yeah.
you know the only stable person around here is just yours truly. I don't know what to say.
We sure appreciate you, Randy.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
You don't have to fish for the compliment.
Yeah.
You are the hardest working one.
Yeah.
There you are.
No, I was gone for a weekend.
I would shy away from the stability one, but yeah.
Wow, says the trained counselor. I don't know how that makes you feel, but
Well, he's probably not wrong either. So, there's that to be considered. So, this week it was a week that you're not sure what to expect because we put a bunch of teenagers in charge of putting together our whole church service, the worship experience, the message.
Yeah.
Well, except for Tomas, he's not a kid.
he's a teenager, really. I mean, at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
he probably no.
Okay.
He's got to be. Tomas said he was 14 when he went to Camp Hale in Colorado.
I don't think it was Camp Hale.
That's the only.
He said he went to Colorado, but I think it was Red Rocks. Was it Red Rocks?
Was there a camporee
There
for
was
Red
a
Rocks?
Red Rocks. I am really curious because
I was
I was not old enough to go to Camp Hale. I was literally
you must have just missed it
9
then.
months.
That was
like
86.
6 months.
Is that right?
88 or 86.
I think it was
Had to be-
86.
Yeah.
No, it had to be 86 because I
was
was
86.
I was 14, and I was right in the middle of my Pathfinder experience, pretty
Yeah.
much. And that was so. And I
So then
just
that would
turned
have been
52.
so that must have been, maybe it was Camp Hale that he went to.
It could have
then,
been, 'cause I think him and I are about the
next
same
one was
age.
the one in Pennsylvania, right?
Yes. After that was Pennsylvania because it was all the way east.
Right.
I'm sorry for those of you who have no idea because you are not haven't been a part of Pathfinders in the Seventh-day Adventist Church system. Just give us this nostalgic moment for ourselves.
it's a boys and girls club all wrapped into one sort of.
Well, I think
Boy Scouts,
I think it
Girl
was the
Scouts?
first
co-ed,
international.
yeah, co-ed.
Yeah.
I think that was the first
I
international.
think it was the first
camporee.
international camporee ever. Yeah.
So from Wisconsin, we took a school bus
Yeah.
with our people and took out seats to put in gear.
Yeah.
And we were packed to the max and we got to go do cool stuff like he did. I mean, the whitewater rafting, that could have been done in either place. We went to Leadville, which was a little old kind of ghost town, mining town, and lots of really good memories. Ice cold showers. They just diverted the river into smaller and smaller tubes until they came out into a white PVC spigot inside of a blue tarp that you got to stand in for the least amount of time as possible just to get wet and try to get the soap out. So, but that was good memories. I totally found myself going back to 1986, I think it was.
Yeah.
Like you
Did you
said.
go to any international camporees, Melanie?
I did not. I only went to the local camporees.
All right.
Yeah.
local, like the state level?
Yeah.
And Jeff?
I was at Camp Hale.
Were you?
Yeah.
Who did you go with?
We were with
Hinsdale?
the Broadview Academy.
Broadview, yeah, okay.
Broadview Academy group. Yeah.
They had a
bus. They had a bus from their
Really?
academy. So we went up. We were actually supposed to take the train. I don't know if you remember, there was a train.
There was talk about a bunch of groups.
Yeah, from Wisconsin and
yeah.
Illinois that had got a train and that fell through at the very
That would have
last.
been awesome.
Yeah.
Because the bus stunk. The bus was horrible. No AC. And then our director he was the biggest nervous Nelly in the history of the world. And you could not open your windows on the whole trip. There's no AC, and you've got like the Bluebird
He
extended
just knew
bus.
who was in his bus with him. He didn't want you hanging out the window. You
Yeah,
didn't
well, I
know
got-
what was going on.
I got in trouble for putting my pillowcase out the window to dry it because my.
Well, you're the reason that they closed the window.
Well,
now
we weren't allowed to open it, but I had
It's called the Randy rule.
Yeah, exactly.
my Coca-Cola, as I opened it and went over a bump, fizzed all over, and I had to cover it with my pillow to keep from being found out. And then we snapped it ever so quietly into the window.
I think everybody that's ever been a Pathfinder has a Pathfinder story.
Oh,
they
yeah.
just, it's just,
I
that's
do.
the way it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you're wondering, the last 2 weeks we've had this in the show notes, but the OrlandoCityPathfinders.com, the URL is in the show notes. And if you or someone you know that's of that age group that would like to find out more and be a part of, and
Or if
have
you
a
were
story
part
of your
of
own,
Pathfinders and you have your Pathfinder story, share it with us. We ought to hear some.
Yeah.
Here's some of these stories.
I would
Yeah.
love to know who's got the honors. Like, get your sash out. I have my mom has my sash, so I'm not sure. Get
I
your
was
honors out.
tempted to wear my sash.
Were you?
I was going to, because I did announcements this last week, and I was thinking I should have got my sash out.
I know. My mom was going to bring it last time they came to Florida, so I'll have to tell her this year to
For
bring it.
those of you that don't know what we're talking about here, is there you one of the things you do in Pathfinders is you get honors. They're little patches of little curriculums that you take part in and learn. There's rocketry. I mean, there's hundreds, maybe thousands.
Maybe,
Yeah.
there's
Maybe thousands of honors. Yeah.
everything from first aid to frogs, dogs, swimming,
pizza making,
Yeah. Cake decorating. That was my favorite.
Cake decorating.
Oh, I love cake decorating. Not because I was any good at it,
glass
but I loved
stained
eating
glass
frosting.
painting was what was my favorite.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, they
I
had
see that.
we had fun with that one.
Did you do leather? Leathercraft was always
yeah.
a hot one. And
I think I made a belt,
yeah.
and I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it didn't fit. I think we all started, so I must have got fat during that time. I couldn't get it back. I couldn't.
As we digress.
Right. Couldn't
Okay.
I feel like we're right on topic, Jeff. I think
Yeah,
we're-
no. Pathfinders is something that we have here. We have Adventures, which is the group that leads into Pathfinders. And, if you're also looking for just a good something to donate to, speaking of international
Yeah, we're
camporees,
going this year.
they're
Next year.
going
Next
and
You should put that in the show notes, how they can donate
Yeah.
to so that we're sending 150
50.
people to Gillette, Wyoming.
Wyoming.
I don't think Gillette has any idea what's headed their way.
the EAA,
I think-
they should call the EAA if they're not.
Yeah, well, yeah, right.
Oshkosh knows all about it.
Yeah,
but
they're So we're saying 150 to Gillette, and so they have. You think about what it would take to get 150 people from here to Gillette and back, and
it's about $250,000.
Yeah,
That's a lot. I mean, it sounds nicer when like Tomas said, it's only 250,000, and I'm like, $250,000. Does that sound better or worse? It's a lot of money.
It is.
That's a ton of money.
But I'll tell you what, though, when you think about it, it is a life-changing experience for kids. I can tell you, like, everybody has their story, but for me, going on that friendship camper that I was saying up in Pennsylvania, that's something that's still anchored in my memories that for good and for some other things.
Sure. But like rappelling down a cliff at Camp Hale
Yeah.
is still one of the things I'll never forget. I can still picture looking
Was
down.
Desmond Doss there teaching you how to do it?
Not that I know of, but I don't know if I knew who Desmond Doss was in 1986. So
What?
You
were in Pathfinders and you didn't know who Desmond Doss was?
No, probably not.
Was there a
wow.
Desmond Doss honor? Is there a
If
badge?
not, there should be.
There should
Dodging
be,
bullets,
yeah.
like
Dodging bullets.
carrying your people through an active
I
minefield.
think that would be
what
more.
that be?
Maybe that's the honorary knot tying. That's what
Yeah,
they should
maybe
call
that's
the
probably
knot
what it
tying
is.
honor is
Yeah.
the Desmond Doss. If you don't know who Desmond Doss is, he received. He was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor during World War II he was a medic. He didn't carry a weapon, so he was. I think
He was a CO.
he was really the first conscientious objector who didn't carry a weapon to receive the congressional.
That sounds right.
I think
That
there was.
seems
I think
right,
there was
yeah.
another congressional.
Yeah.
Or another conscientious objector, but I think anyway.
There's actually a movie about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hacksaw
Hacksaw
Ridge.
Ridge.
I think that just was put on Netflix. Actually.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I'm going to have to take a peek. I've always wanted to see it. And I've
Which,
never
by the
seen it at
way,
this point.
just full disclosure, that is an R-rated
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, a good point.
Be careful when you hit play.
Yeah.
Well, it does depict some more realistic
Yeah.
scenes
It's like
of-
Saving
of
Private
war.
Ryan from what I've
Yeah.
heard, which is maybe the
It
most
was-
realistic. But
And that's almost entirely where the rating comes from is the gore, because the Seventh-day Adventist Church was actually involved in the making of that movie because they owned the rights to Desmond Doss's story. That I shouldn't say it was the Georgia Cumberland Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. And so I was fortunate enough to actually go to one of the pre-screenings where they actually pre-screened the movie for a select group of people. And it was kind of funny because they asked us to evaluate it coming out. And they had a little bit of language in it. And so a couple was like, well, do you have to? And they're like, no, we don't have to. And so they took out a lot of the language that they had in there. And
being that that's a Mel Gibson production, that's
no small thing.
That's a little surprising, actually.
Yeah. So there you go.
Cool. Well, you'll find all of those things in the show notes today, just like you have the last 2 weeks, and they would appreciate every ounce they can raise and how. Yeah. And I just know, speaking for my 3 that want to go, my wife and Emily and Ellie, $750 times 3 is not a small ask, and so I know that we're already starting to think of ways that we can raise a little money to get the 3 of them out there, and then maybe have Dad fly out at the very end and maybe do a little vacation on the way back, catching. I
feel like you could make that a work expense though if you take video and do some of that.
I'll have to talk to Mr. Monday about that.
You should definitely do that.
Maybe we should all go. That'll be like what?
Yeah.
Episode 400.
We'll set up a podcast.
What number will that podcast be? Ooh.
So I guess what I was thinking in terms of, you could just write off your taxes, but whatever, Right. But
oh wow,
Ken's backpedaling now.
I know that John may be listening to this.
That's a big reversal of fortunes right there. I'm telling you what.
Come on, it's writing off your taxes. That's a good deal.
Oh man. So if you missed the message this week, which is what we're here for, in case you're new, this is the podcast where we dive deeper into the message that is given each week here at WholeLife Church in Orlando. And this week it was our said Pathfinder director, Tomas Diaz, who has been on the podcast before. And after I saw him during the morning, before first, after second, and I was just like, I'm glad I didn't ask him to be on the podcast this week because he looked tired. Yeah. And then in the afternoon,
been a long week.
We had another event upstairs with the Pathfinders, and it was just like, I think I'm just going to let Tomas have a couple of days off and not make him think about it. But I also don't want to skip over the message because I thought his message was
great.
He did a great job.
Really important. One that you would say may not be any big, super huge revelations, but I think it's one of those also that we need to hear from time to time.
It is. It's such a reminder.
Yeah,
it's such an important one. And I think maybe it is a revelation to some people that...
Well, it might be. That's true.
With some of the mediocrity that you see out of Christianity, that maybe it is a revelation that God really does desire excellence and not just good enough.
And what's really cool is he backs it up. He has led a very, very well organized, and the kids, it's not just well organized, it's fun.
Yeah,
they love it. So he puts a lot of his own excellence into.
And if you've ever attended a meeting, Tomas is like a pinball bouncing off of every person, every place, everything that's going on, and everyone wants a piece of Tomas because he's got everything under control. He knows what's going on. He's kind. He's just a really, really awesome person to be around.
And it shows. I mean, you look at, I think we've gone, the first year we had, what?
115, I think?
No, yeah, maybe 115, and now we're up to 153
or something. I think is the number on Saturday.
So it's growing. Whenever they go to big get-togethers of Pathfinders, they're always in the top 2 or 3 when it comes to the different competitions that they have at these camporees and things like that. So, Tomas definitely backs up what he's talking about. He definitely, and it's not just there. I think that, Tomas is an entrepreneur and he's excellent at what he does. Started some very successful companies and that perform with excellence. And I think what a great role model for the kids. And clearly this is something that he is passionate about and lives out. And, as a speaker, one of the things you hope to do is do more than just preach about it, but to live it. And I really feel like Tomas does live it out. And it was a very good sermon, a great reminder, and maybe just maybe there's some people that are like, I hadn't really thought about God really caring about that much.
Well, I think it brings out a long-standing tradition here when it was Florida Hospital Church. And I remember one of the messages, we hadn't been here that long, that Andy had preached on the subject. And I forget what he used as the metaphor for it, but it was something that the church had done, whether that was, it might have been the new AV room, and people, you make the move from old analog equipment and now you're going digital and you're going to high def. And it's like people had questions about, do we need this? Is this something that we have to do? I mean, couldn't we do a little bit less, or could we do it on a lesser scale? And I just remember Andy saying, when we take God's work that we do here very, very seriously, and what's too good for God? Like, what could we do if we're not going to do it with excellence? Why bother if we're just not going to come at it with the attitude of just giving it our all, doing the best that we can with the resources that we have or that we can raise, and just being intentional about being excellent. And if we miss the mark a little bit because of whatever we couldn't do for whatever reason, at least we know we did the best that we could and we shot for as high as we could. And it was a really good message that stuck with me. And it made me think back of other churches or other ministries that I'd been a part of where you're like, man, I wish that we would have shot for even good or better. Or it's like, well, here's good, better, best, and all we can afford is good. And that's, okay, well, maybe that's what you have to do. But it wasn't like, did we even discuss what the better or best might be? And then what the excellent could be? And it was a message that stuck with me from Andy's time and always has. And now that I'm here on staff, it's something that I still think about as we go through budget processes and how can we improve our communications, how can we improve digital ministries. And that's just something that's always stuck with me. So I really appreciated Tomas's vantage point on that, because I think it really played into what we've done here or what we've been about for a long, long time.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
So the one question that I really came out of that Tomas he didn't answer, or if he did, I missed it. So maybe you guys can be the judge and jury here. How do we separate the excellence that Tomas is talking about? And for a lot of us who tend to be in certain areas type A in parts of our personality, and that probably no one, including ourselves, is ever going to live up to that. So when we set the excellence bar, how do we keep from setting it from a personal point of, well, yeah, that would be great, but I know that's never, ever going to happen and I'll never live up to it, to trying to find the excellence that God has blessed us with and the talents that he's given us, and to make sure we keep those in check, because that seems to be, at least for me, that's one that I struggle with a ton. And I've never gotten good at it, so I'm not sure what that answer is. But Melanie seems like looking like she's got something for me. Bring it on.
I've got something to say, Randy. I was just going to say that, because I'm the same way, perfectionist. I want everything to be good. But I noticed that if I'm spending too much energy on making one thing perfect, that maybe other things are suffering. So I wonder if it's about that balance. If you look around and say, well, this one thing is really super excellent, but these other things are suffering, then I'm not really being excellent in a balanced way. So maybe it's about sort of looking across, the things that you're engaged in and kind of measuring, okay, am I being excellent in general, or am I being selectively excellent?
Is selectively excellent better than broadly mediocre?
I do not know the answer to that.
Because that's my immediate thought process is there's like, okay, like maybe the most important one needs to be the excellent one, and then the other ones will trail off as necessary.
I suppose you could prioritize.
I think Tomas may have said this, there's a difference between excellence and perfection.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between excellence and perfection.
And excellence is a mindset. He emphasized the fact that excellence is a mindset versus your results. I mean, obviously you want your results to be excellent as well, but I think what he emphasized was the mindset of excellence is the most important part.
Well, and it's not an accident. I mean, it's something that you used the illustration of Steph Curry, at how that he was talented. Don't get me wrong. He was a very talented kid, but he was very, very, very rehearsed. I mean, he went and did a lot of work to get to that point.
Sure.
So I think that's the other side of this too, is that perfection is maybe, what's the phrase? If you strive for perfection, you'll get excellence.
Right. Vince Lombardi.
Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah. And
go Pack Go.
And I think
sorry.
And Thank you, Randy. But I do feel like there is a separation. Sometimes we get crosshairs on the perfection piece, and we think that's our goal. Here I'm not trying to take away from what Lombardi said, but I do think our accountabilities, and sometimes we can get so, like in the weeds with so many different things that we have to, all the plates need to be spinning just like I want them to. And I think you can get really anxious quick when you start to realize all the things that you feel like you're accountable for. And maybe that's when you look back and you say, okay, hold on. I want my achievements to be measured by success. And yet I need to step back. And this is where you might need to say, okay, I'm going to let some of those plates drop.
Let them drop. Yeah.
I'm not going to be accountable to all of them.
I think it's about knowing what your values and priorities are too. Mm-hmm. To Melanie's earlier point, I think that you cannot do everything
right
perfectly, and so you have to know what's most important that you get most right.
Yeah.
And so, when I think about it, like my kids and my wife, it's more important to me that I stay married and that I have kids that know that I care about them than that I am the best beloved pastor on earth. And so that I want to be a great pastor. It's very important to me to be excellent at my work. But if I have to pick between investing into my marriage and investing into the work, I need to pick my marriage. I need to pick my kids. And I happen to believe, especially in pastoral ministry, that those are things that really pay off. You're not going to be good as a pastor if your marriage is in deep trouble. And for me, the other side of it is, so I go out and I have a bunch of people that are really grateful for me visiting them in the hospital and preaching sermons that they grow in Christ through, and that's great. But if my kids are like, I don't know this guy, and that what he's preaching about doesn't line up with what's happening at home, I don't know how successful and excellent I am in that context. And you can go ahead, and it's not just pastoral ministry, it's whether you are, an executive at a company, or you are working as a janitor somewhere, or you are whatever it is that you're doing. You got to decide where the priorities are in your life. And I'll go ahead and just, since Tomas isn't here, I can just talk about him, right? So I thought it was telling to me that I asked Tomas to do another thing here at the church, and to take on another responsibility here in the church, and asked him if he'd think about it. He came out and said, thank you for thinking of me. I really appreciate it, but I really want to make sure I focus my energies into Pathfinders. This is where I'm committed. And I really actually appreciated that and admired that. He understood where his priorities are, what he was wanting to accomplish, and where he felt like God was wanting him to do. He recognized you can only be so excellent in so many things. There's only so much you can take on and do it with excellence. And so, again, it comes back to, I think, knowing those values that you have, knowing what your priorities are, and investing in those things, and doing what you can do with excellence, and doing it that way. So, yeah, I thought, so anyway.
No, I liked this. And the thing that I really liked about the Steph Curry analogy and using him as the example was, if you can pick three players other than him or a handful from the NBA who were exceptional, maybe as he was Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, maybe Larry Bird, who were just like at the top of their positions and of their generation. But when you think Steph Curry and you think of, he's consistently open with his faith, where I wouldn't say any of the other three were. And I thought that was the real takeaway, more so than Steph himself, was that his focus and where he gets his excellence for and where he's finding his excellence is in Jesus. And I think that's the difference, where you can be in the conversation among the greatest but not have that same, something else is driving you for whatever reason.
But you know what I appreciate about Steph too is that he is open with his faith, but he's not in your face about his faith. It's not. There's some times where you see athletes or people in the public eye who it feels like it doesn't feel particularly authentic, and it feels like just
a show.
It's a show and it's in your face. And with Steph, at least for me, it's always felt very genuine. But that's just that's my take. And I appreciate that about him.
Absolutely.
And I think that helps with that priority piece that you were talking about. It does sort of bring everything into perspective as to what are my priorities as a Christian, even.
Yeah. So. Well, and the other example that he gave was Sue Ellie. Yeah. From the Pathfinder team, who is part of the food team, the feeding team. It's
no small thing when you're feeding over 100 people, right?
And when we were at Red Zone 2 years ago was my first experience, and it was the first Pathfinder camp out probably since I think Camp Hale might have been my last hurrah because I was about to age out of Pathfinders after that. And, we used to get powdered eggs, powdered milk, and just all kinds of horrible, horrible things to eat.
My favorite was, what was it? It was
Aunt Jemima pancake mix.
Tater tot casserole, which involved unfreezing tater tots, dumping mushroom soup over top of them, sprinkling some paprika on top of that. And that was a meal. Oh.
You know what's in my refrigerator right now?
Tater tot casserole.
Yeah, and now it has a little ground turkey. It has some green beans.
But that's a little extra.
And there's a little cheese.
I'm telling you, like literally, what I just named was what it was. I'm not even sure they stirred the mushroom soup before they dumped it on top.
No, it was the food was so bad, and when you'd get back. My mom was always like, you guys act like you haven't eaten in 3 days. And it's like, shut up, give us something to eat, real food.
In case one of my ex-Pathfinder people is listening, I should be honest. That story is actually a summer camp. It wasn't a Pathfinder.
I was going to say, you guys had it good.
Aren't they the same camper? Aren't they the same cooks?
No.
In this case, no. We had a really good cook for the Pathfinder Club. That was
our Pathfinder director said, hey, we're all camping out. You're all going to get your honor in wild edible plants. There's your meal.
That's it.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think mine was a little closer to yours. They gave us some raw potatoes and a matchstick.
Exactly.
I remember eating a potato that was burnt on one side and raw on the other. I did not get the honor in potato baking and fire coals.
Yeah, I always loved it when it was we're having baked potatoes in the fire, and they'd wrap it up in like one type of, like if you don't double wrap tinfoil and you're going to put the potatoes in there, they're going to be burnt and no one's going to eat them. You're going to throw them out. But, tinfoil's expensive apparently. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But yeah, if you've eaten at Sue Ellie's table after she's been preparing the food and her team, it's amazing. They fed us in the heat. They kept us hydrated, and the food was gone every single time and it wasn't because it was like, oh, we made just enough. No, we made enough for everyone to have seconds and thirds. And guess what? They wanted seconds and thirds. They weren't throwing out half a plate of food.
She's good.
They were just so good. So quick shout out to her. She's always such a sweet person and makes the whole experience better. Not just the meals, but the whole experience. And then he gave us 4 tips, which again, maybe this is something to think about.
Just a really quick shout out to Sueli.
Yeah.
She came up more than 4 years ago when she first joined our church. Actually, it was more than 4. It was before COVID. And she said, do we have a Pathfinder club?
Really?
And I said, no, we don't. Not right now. She goes, well, when you do, you let me know because I want to cook for them.
Oh,
so she had a vision for this from the very beginning.
Man,
before they
started. Your gifts for God that he gave you for excellence. That's amazing. Yeah. But I thought the way that, Tomas, again, super simple. Be positive, create a mantra, believe who you are, and rely on God. And number 3 was the good one for me because believe who you are now. Not who you've been, not who you're going to be, but where God has you right now. Believe in this space, in this time that God has you on whatever journey, really just trust that journey and find comfort and peace in that. And it makes it a lot easier when you have that, when you start off, of course, with the positive attitude to find those good things that God has for us in that. And he said, God created us with everything we need to have excellence in all we do. And I think that's easy to forget too, that we talk so much about that this was not the original plan for humankind, and you're born into a world of sin, and it kind of becomes a bit of a downer at times. You're like, well, I don't know, I think I'm doing pretty good for a rotten sinner, and instead of maybe looking at it and saying that, well, God does have a plan. Oh, that salvation thing. Yeah, that was pretty cool. And just finding a different way to look at it, because I feel like what you concentrate on is what you're going to get back. So I was feeling a little bit like that. Saturday morning was just a dumpster fire on my end here for things that I'm responsible for. And so that one just really hit home for me. We didn't have a Facebook feed on Saturday for more than half of a service, and it was due to nothing that we did here. It was in our streaming, and people couldn't get TVs to work or devices to work.
Communication that was out too.
Right, the comms went. Everything Saturday.
Somebody came to you and asked you to live stream something after a service, just stuff like that.
and so I was like, oh, I have time before I get to church. And then, my daughter she was in Pathfinder. She's going to be marching, but she's also directing the live stream. And so she was in a to get out the door was enough stress for the day. And by the time we got done eating lunch with the Pathfinders on third floor at 2:30 or 3, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I don't want to go home. That's it. I just want to go home. I was like, me and Sparkle, we left the other two here. We're like, we're going home. We're going to, and we both actually laid down and took us a quick nap. So that was how my Saturday went. So really be positive and believe who you are in the moment, and then rely on God. Yeah, no, it was the only piece of the message I heard on the TV.
There you go.
That's what you needed to hear. Huh?
It sits up on the wall in my office here, and that was the only part I heard, and it really hit home. So, and then I think at the end, I really liked the way he wrapped everything up. Are you following God with excellence in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, and maybe it's something to consider. And he said, maybe ask God how he wants you to follow him better. And maybe that's not a prayer that we often think about, to say, right, how can I follow you better, a prayer, or instead of, things we need, things we ask for, praying for other people, all good things. But maybe that's a good question, is how can I follow you better or know you better to want to follow you better? So I just thought that the message was full of just those pieces in it. And Tomas just did a great job. And then you can't help but he's a little infectious when you see him. He's always smiling. Mm-hmm. It always seems like he's in control. And so if that's a facade, you're doing a great job, Tomas. And even if it's not, you're still doing a great job. But it's either way. Because, to have the patience to lead a Pathfinder club with 150 kids in it, let alone all the staffing and all the different things that go with it every week. Nothing ever goes completely as you planned, but week in and week out, the Pathfinders have a solid program. I'm there for every meeting, and they just have a solid program. And the one thing I wanted to shout out for Tomas was the Pathfinders have helped our church in the inclusion area, mm-hmm, in starting to bring kids together that are unlike each other, that are from different backgrounds, they're from different religious backgrounds, just different in any way you can think of. Mm-hmm. And his challenge consistently since the beginning to the kids and staff has been, we want to be the most inclusive club there is in all of Pathfinders. We don't want anyone sitting by themselves. We don't want anyone, being made to feel like they're not good enough or they're not accepted. We want to accept and love everyone. And that's been a huge thing for me as a father of two that are there, that is something that isn't just being expected. It's being talked about, and I think that's so important. And so, great job, Tomas, and the whole Pathfinder team for that. Yeah. So, all right, this week coming up, I'm perplexed. I'm excited.
Perplexed. Unpack that one for me.
And I am admittedly not knowledgeable about the 7 churches of Revelation. And so
I'm so excited about this series. I have really just been enjoying the research that I've been doing on it. And so I do have a request, though.
Oh, what do we have?
Special request for our podcast listeners.
Okay.
Whether you're going to be at WholeLife in person or wherever you're at. But if you do come to WholeLife,
all right,
wear Nikes.
Wear Nikes. Okay. If you have them, wear them.
If you have them, wear them.
And if not,
if you're wearing them with a suit, that's fine with me.
I do.
If
need
you're
a new
wearing
pair of
them
shoes.
with jeans, that's fine with me. But if you have a pair of Nike shoes and you're listening to this, when you come to church this Saturday for the first sermon, wear a pair of Nikes.
So I'm gonna
It's
need
not, and I'm not saying that other brands of shoes aren't fine.
I was just going to say asterisk, we are not endorsed by Nike.
No, we're not.
But Nike, if you're listening, we would encourage.
But what's going to be fun is for you to see that there is a connection between Nike and Revelation chapter 2.
Really?
With the first church, the Church of Ephesus. So wear Nikes, just and that'll be kind of the fun thing. If somebody says, "Why are you wearing Nikes?" Say, "Because I was told to on the podcast." Did you not listen to the podcast?
That's right.
Ooh.
Well, because
You're weeding out the sheep from the goats. There.
Yeah. So
because these are my church-going shoes. That's why.
and I'm going to be wearing a pair of Nikes myself.
I'm gonna have to go to Goodwill and see if I can find a used pair at least.
What size do you wear?
10s.
Yeah, I wear 10.5. I've got a couple pairs you might be able to use if you want.
There you
I wear
go.
like a 5.5.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm out of luck.
We'll see. You can pay full price.
Although I will say, I'll add this to what you're saying, Ken. This is going to be a really special series, and people are going to want to come to all 7.
7. Yeah.
All 7.
Is there something else going on that I need to know about?
Well, we have a little special something cooked up that you'll find out about.
Yes.
Ooh.
Since Revelation is a book of mysteries.
Oh.
Yes.
There may be some mystery mixed in.
Sounds very mysterious.
That there might be some code words. Some things that if you are paying attention and you write them down, there may be, a crown of victory.
It sounds to me like Ken and Melanie have been locking the door to her office and having secret conversations and sessions about how we're going to be mysterious.
So it's going to be so much fun. So you really do want to be on your toes and paying attention on this one because
excellent.
You may have already, in fact, in our conversation, you may already have received a clue that you may not even be aware of.
That's true.
So that's
might want to rewind.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Da
Come back
Vinci
to this
Code.
later, just see what's going on there. But so it's I am, like I said, super looking forward to it, and in a very serious way. This is taking the text and really we're going to dig into it. I think that unless you've got an MDiv, I think you're going to learn some things. And even then, I'm hoping that you may learn some things anyway.
Yeah.
So I have just had a blast researching this, and there's just been things I did not know that. That is.
So if you just have an HK div, you are definitely going to learn.
Yeah, if that's all you've got. Yeah.
Well, then sign me up because I'm going to learn something. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but who knows what it was. So anyway.
Well, if you think about it, you've got a couple hours until I put the show notes. So check the show notes for the Pathfinders, and there'll be the link to their website and also the link that if you feel like you'd like to assist someone with any dollar amount in making their goal to go to the Camporee, you can do that there. And now you got it?
I thought of it. I thought of it. I was just going to say, I realized I said if you're coming to WholeLife, wear Nike shoes, but just if you're not going to be at WholeLife, you're listening to this,
still put them on,
and somewhere on a different continent, and you have a pair of Nikes, just put them on, just in solidarity.
Yeah, send us a picture and text them to 407-965-1607.
Now, here's what I'd also say, though.
What's that?
If you don't own a pair of Nikes, please don't go buy them.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
No.
Don't go. Don't do that. It's not worth it.
You could go to...
Now Nike has just removed their endorsement.
I'm not trying to...
Thanks, Ken.
I'm just saying if you already have a pair...
Well, you could go to the shoe
wear 'em.
store and try a pair on and get your picture taken with them and then send them in. And that, no one's going to know the difference.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
Yeah,
So,
I'm down
anyway.
with that. And maybe that's what I'll do.
There we go.
Get my picture taken with the cool new kicks and
I'll bring you a pair of my old...
and save the bread. Cool. Cool. All right, guys. As always, thank you for listening and have a great week.